Okay, so the next one is the vas deferens or ductus deferens. It's the tube that permits sperm to exit from the epididymis and pass from the scrotal sac upward into the abdominal cavity. It passes through the inguinal canal into the abdominal cavity as part of the spermatic cord, a connective tissue sheath that also encloses blood vessels and nerves. You need to know that it passes into the abdominal cavity via the spermatic cord, okay? The ejaculatory duct and urethra. Once in the abdominal cavity, the vas deferens extends over the top and down the posterior surface of the bladder. So that's the other, up and over, right? So the epididymis is up and over the testes, right? And the ejaculatory, or the vas deferens, extends over the top and down the posterior side of the bladder. Okay? Where it joins the duct from the seminal vesicles to form the ejaculatory duct. The urethra serves two purposes. One is the place where you excrete urine, and the other is that's where the sperm is ejected for purposes of making babies, right? All right. Accessory glands. The term semen or seminal fluid is used to describe the mixture of sex cells or sperm produced by the testes and the secretions of the accessory or supportive sex glands. I don't do many numbers, but y'all need to pay attention to how much each of these organs contributes to the amount of sperm, okay? So this says the accessory glands, which contribute more than 95% of the secretions to the gelatinous fluid part of the semen, include 2 seminal vesicles, 1 prostate gland, and 2 bulbourethral glands or Cowper's glands. In addition to the production of sperm, the seminiferous tubules of the testes contribute somewhat less than 5% of the seminal fluid volume. Usually 3 to 5 mLs of semen are ejaculated at one time, and each milliliter normally contains about 100 million sperm. That's why we get pregnant, girls. 100 million sperm. Semen is slightly alkaline and thus protects sperm from the acidic environment of the female reproductive tract. The female reproductive tract is very acidic. All right, seminal vesicles are elongated exocrine glands that join the vas deferens and the ejaculatory duct. Together, the seminal vesicles contribute about 60% of the seminal fluid volume. Their secretions are often slightly yellowish, thick, and rich in the sugar fructose. This fraction of the seminal fluid helps provide a source of energy for the highly motile sperm. Okay, the prostate gland lies just below the bladder and is shaped like a donut. The urethra passes through the center of the prostate before traversing the penis to end at the external urinary meatus. The prostate secretes a thin, milk-colored fluid that constitutes about 30% of the total seminal fluid volume. So I'm sure y'all have talked about the prostate gland before. The urethra passes through the middle of it. It's like a donut. And when men get older, that overgrows and clamps down on that urethra. So if you hear about benign prostatic hypertrophy, it's not cancer. But it's an overgrowth of cells, and so it clamps down on that urethra. So older men will have to get up and go to the bathroom like 10 times at night. They cannot empty their bladder, and that's why. And they do something called a TURP. If you're ever working on a floor where they do a lot of renal, urinary, whatever surgeries, you'll get a patient that's had a TURP, a transurethral resection of the prostate. That's where they go in there and basically cut out that overgrowth of tissue. So they'll come back from surgery with a Foley catheter that looks like a garden hose. It's huge. It's huge. And they'll have a Foley bag that is full of really dark red urine. You'll have a great big bag of fluids that you will adjust. What you want is that urine to become lighter and lighter and lighter, okay, as this thing heals up and recovers from all this surgery. And you will adjust that fluid to make that happen. And sometimes you'll have to extract blood clots and whatever to make it flow. But it's a whole big deal. It's a big deal. So resection of the prostate is not a fun thing for guys. And most of them go home with a catheter, that great big catheter. They want it to heal before they remove it, or heal a lot before they remove it. See, I give y'all all this free information. Y'all have no idea. All right, so the bulbourethral glands resemble a pea in size and shape. They're located just below the prostate gland and empty their secretions into the penile portion of the urethra. See 21-7. Where's 21? Oh, there it is at the bottom. Okay. Because the bulbourethral secretion is often, where am I? Oh, okay. I'm getting messages on my computer. All right. So the bulbourethral secretions often released just before most of the rest of the semen is ejaculated. It is sometimes called the pre-ejaculate. It has sperm in it, people. That's how a lot of people get pregnant, okay? The pre-ejaculate has sperm in it. So if the method of birth control is withdrawal before ejaculation, you're going to have some sperm in this pre-ejaculate. That's how a lot of us got here, I'm sure, or some of us anyway. So that's not a good way to have birth control. The bulbourethral glands contribute less than 5% of the seminal fluid volume ejaculated from the urethra. All right, external genitals. The penis and scrotum constitute the external male reproductive organs, sometimes called the genitals or genitalia. The penis is the organ that, when made stiff and erect by the filling of its spongy or erectile tissue components with blood during sexual arousal, can enter and deposit sperm in the vagina during intercourse. I'm sorry. So if you look at the diagram on page 468, it's figure 21-7. It shows you the construction of the penis. It is basically 3 tubes, okay? 3 tubes that fill with blood that make the penis erect so that intercourse can happen. All right, so you have 2 corpus cavernosa. If you look at the bottom of this diagram, they're the big, round, pinkish-looking things. And a corpus spongiosum. So the 3 of them together form a tubular system that, when it's filled with blood, becomes erect. So when older men cannot have an erection, younger men too, that have some kind of circulatory problem, that's what's going to happen. I once had a friend who said, if you start dating somebody and they've got cold hands, run away. Poor circulation. Sorry. Sorry, too much information, right? Cold hands and a warm heart? Yeah, right. Okay, so you need to know about those 3 tubes, okay? So you've got the corpus spongiosum, and 2 corpora cavernosa. Okay, so the glans is the sensitive part of the penis at the very end. The external urinary meatus is the opening of the urethra at the tip of the glans. So that's where the urethra comes in. The sensitive skin of the distal end of the penis is folded doubly to form a loose-fitting retractable collar around the glands called the foreskin or prepuce, P-R-E-P-U-C-E. This is what is removed when a male baby is circumcised. You're removing that sheath that covers the penis, okay? The scrotum is the skin-covered pouch suspended from the groin. Internally, it is divided into 2 compartments by a septum. Each compartment contains a testis, epididymis, the lower part of the vas deferens, and the beginning of the spermatic cord. The reason that, well, I thought that was right here, but I don't see it. The scrotal sac is outside of the body, okay, to keep the sperm cool, all right? Sperm are very sensitive to heat. The scrotal sac reduces the temperature by 3 degrees centigrade. You need to know that number. When women have problems getting pregnant, I've heard that the doctor will say, what kind of underwear does your husband wear? If they wear tighty-whities, y'all all know what those are, right? It holds that scrotum up close to their body, and the temperature is too high. So they'll say, tell your husband to start wearing boxer shorts. And sometimes it helps. Sounds silly. They'll say, don't get in hot tubs or saunas or whatever. Makes a difference. Sperm are very, very sensitive to temperature. All right, that's the guys, okay? Now let's look at the girls. It's a little more complicated than the girls. We are complicated, aren't we?
Miss White, can you tell me the centigrade? The
3 degrees centigrade.
I'm saying, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I lost my mind.
3 degrees centigrade.
I don't see it in my book. Okay.
Well, it's in here somewhere. I can't tell you where. It may be the next chapter even. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Don't make me crazy. Here we go. It's on page 463. This exposed location provides an environment about 1 to 3 centigrades cooler than normal body temperature, an important requirement for the normal production and survival of sperm. 1 to 3 degrees centigrade. You thought I was making that up, didn't you?
No, I believe you.
Oh, okay, good. Good. You probably shouldn't, but good. On any given day, you probably shouldn't. Not today, though. You can believe me today. All right, so the female reproductive system, the essential organs are the gonads, which are the paired ovaries of the female. The female sex cells, or ova, are produced in the ovaries. The ovaries also produce the hormones estrogen and progesterone. You will fall in love with those 2 hormones because we talk about them all the time, okay, in this class. All right, accessory organs of reproduction in the woman consist of a series of ducts or modified duct structures that extend from near the ovaries to the exterior. Additional sex glands, including the mammary glands, which have an important reproductive function only in women. The external reproductive organs or external genitals. And it gives you a little chart, table 21-1, that shows the essential and accessory organs of the female. You need to become familiar with those. Okay. All right. So ovaries are about the size of an almond, and they're on either side. The paired ovaries are the gonads of women. They have a puckered, uneven surface. Each weighs about 3 grams. The ovaries resemble large almonds in size and shape. They are attached to ligaments in the pelvic cavity on each side of the uterus. Embedded in a connective tissue matrix just below the outer layer of each ovary in a newborn baby girl are about 1 million ovarian follicles. Each follicle contains an oocyte, which is an immature female sex cell. At puberty and under the stimulation of FSH, an anterior pituitary gland hormone, a group of follicles develop into primary follicles, which are surrounded by a layer of cuboidal cells, sometimes called follicular cells. If you look at this figure 21-9 on the bottom of page 470, it shows you, I'm a real visual learner, about all the things we're about to talk about in this next paragraph or two. Okay, so with continued development, the layers of follicular cells around the oocyte increase in number. They start secreting hormones that are now called granulosa cells. A fluid-filled cavity called an antrum appears, and the primary follicle becomes a secondary follicle. So if you start at the bottom of this diagram, in the bottom right-hand corner, primary follicles, follicular cells, secondary follicles, granulosa cells, antrum. It goes all the way around to ovulation, to development of the corpus luteum, et cetera, et cetera. So if you'll start at that bottom right-hand corner of that diagram, it's going to show you a visual of what these paragraphs are telling you. Okay, during the reproductive lifetime of most women only, you need to know these numbers, about 350 to 500 of the primary follicles fully develop into mature follicles. So even though we're born with 1 million, only 350 to 500 are going to mature into something that could be a baby, right? It's the mature follicle that releases an ovum for potential fertilization, a process called ovulation. Follicles that do not fully mature degenerate and are reabsorbed into the ovarian tissue. The mature ovarian follicle is often called a Graafian follicle. It's Graafian, Graafian follicle. After ovulation, the ruptured follicle is transformed into a hormone-secreting glandular structure called the corpus luteum. That's that yellow thing in the picture, the yellow donut-looking thing, which is described later as the corpus luteum yellow body, which is a description of what it looks like. The corpus luteum secretes progesterone until the placenta takes over. We'll get to that in a minute. The unusual form of cell division that results in sperm formation, meiosis, is also responsible for development of ova. During the developmental phases experienced by the female sex cell from its earliest stage to just after fertilization, 2 meiotic divisions occur. All right, so look at this diagram on page 471. If you look on the right-hand side, it shows that you've got 46 chromosomes, right? Then you go through mitosis, all right? Then meiosis. And at the end of meiosis, you're going to wind up with 23 chromosomes. So we're going to get 23 from dad and 23 from mom. That's just the way it goes. And the cell division is the same as in man. It's mitosis and meiosis. They show 2 stages of meiosis. You just need to know mitosis and meiosis, okay? So that's our cell division. That's how we get down to 23 chromosomes. Okay, so the second major function of the ovary, in addition to oogenesis, is secretion of the sex hormones estrogen and progesterone. Hormone production in the ovary begins at puberty with the cyclic development and maturation of the ovum. The granulosa cells around the oocyte in the growing and maturing follicle secrete estrogen, okay? The corpus luteum, which develops after ovulation, chiefly secretes progesterone, but also a little estrogen, okay? So its main function is progesterone, okay? And it lasts, I don't know, 10 to 12 days. I've forgotten what the number is. And then the placenta takes over and produces the progesterone, all right? Some of the actions of estrogen include development and maturation of female reproductive organs, including the external genitals, appearance of pubic hair and breast development of female body contours by deposition of fat below the skin surface and in the breast and hip region. I must have a lot of estrogen, I've decided. Y'all are just not with it. Get with the program. Okay, initiation of the first menstrual cycle is another function. All right, progesterone is produced by the corpus luteum, which is a glandular structure that develops from a follicle that has just released an ovum. If stimulated by the appropriate anterior pituitary hormone, the corpus luteum produces progesterone for about 11 days after ovulation. Progesterone stimulates proliferation and vascularization of the epithelial lining of the uterus and acts with estrogen to initiate the menstrual cycle in girls entering puberty. Without enough progesterone, you cannot maintain a pregnancy, okay? If there's a drop in the amount of progesterone, you will have a miscarriage. If you don't make enough, you will have a miscarriage. So that becomes super major important, doesn't it? All right, reproductive ducts. The reproductive ducts in the male and female reproductive tract are similar in some fundamental ways. First, both sets of ducts lead from each of the paired gonads, then join into a single passage that leads out of the body. Second, both male and female ducts carry gametes away from the gonads. However, because humans are placental mammals, the female reproductive ducts also have central roles in receiving sperm from the male, fertilization, and prenatal development. Functions not needed in the male reproductive tract. Keep these unique reproductive functions in mind as we now learn how structure fits function. All right. The two uterine tubes are fallopian tubes. I call them fallopian tubes. Your book refers to them both ways. Or oviducts. Serve as ducts for the ovaries, even though they're not attached. If you look at this diagram on the bottom of page 472, it's figure 21-11. It shows that the tubes come really close to the ovaries, but they're not attached. So look at me. So you've got your ovary, and it spits out an ovum, right? And here's your fallopian tube, and it's got these little fingers called fimbriae, and they suck or pull that ova into the fallopian tubes. They're not attached. So it's this wave-like motion that the fimbriae make that pull the ova into the fallopian tube. Okay, so those are called fimbriae, those little finger-like things. The inner end of each uterine tube attaches to the uterus, and the cavity inside the tube opens into the cavity in the uterus. So the ends are out here like this, okay? But they're attached at the inside. Okay. After ovulation, the discharged ovum briefly enters the abdominal cavity and then enters the uterine tube, assisted by the wave-like movement of the fimbriae and the beating of the cilia on their surface. After it is in the tube, the ovum begins its journey to the uterus. Some ova never find their way into the oviduct and remain in the abdominal cavity where they are reabsorbed. In chapter 22, the details of fertilization, which normally occurs in the outer 1/3 of the uterine tube, will be discussed. That's where fertilization occurs, outer 1/3 of the fallopian tube. The mucosal lining of the uterine tubes is directly continuous with the lining of the abdominal cavity on one end and with the lining of the uterus and vagina on the other. This is of great clinical significance because infections of the vagina or uterus, such as gonorrhea, may pass into the abdominal cavity where they may become life-threatening. All right, let's take a break. Are y'all asleep yet? All right, come back at 2:30. Okay.